everybody? Welcome back to another Filmmaker Friday here on the Messed Up Movies Podcast. Quick notes. Make sure you go to our YouTube, subscribe over there, Misfit Parade, so you can see these conversations, see shorts, all that good stuff. We're on all the social media you're on. We'd love to see you there. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the fuck. We're there. Find us. 5-star ratings and reviews on every podcast app would be great. Messed Up Movies Podcast Patreon page, free, exclusive, awesome. Well, not free. You got to show some tit if you want these dollars. Also, our Black Mirror miniseries starting over there. Lots of fun stuff. We'd love to see you over there. That's enough business to introduce today's filmmaker we will be talking to today. Chris Ott, welcome to the show. Would you like to tell everyone a brief introduction into who you are and where they can find you online?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first of all. To start off, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. It's just Christopher Ott. It's just a guy look for a guy in sunglasses and a hat that's backwards, black and white photo. Pretty easy.
Nice.
And then Instagram, it's just at Cotter117. For those of you, the 117 is a reference to Master Chief from Halo.
There you go.
The franchise.
Dude, so I just got called by my brother's friend, and he's like, hey, do you want to turn on Master Chief Collection? I was like, holy shit, I haven't done that in years. It is not like it was. It is a cruel, cruel world.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out when you're a college kid and you have nothing but free time, you can get really good at that. And now...
Exactly. See, I just started playing it again, and they added Halo. Yeah. I realized they added Halo Reach, which is one of my favorite games ever.
Yes.
So diving back into that is nostalgia and perfect. I love it.
Very nice.
And then I guess a little bit about me is I'm located in Dublin, Ohio. And I'm an independent filmmaker, but I've been kind of on mostly on the tech side of just being a cinematographer and editor and producer. Besides that, I mean, my day job is I'm a marketing specialist and a radio producer for iHeart in Columbus. I produce three shows actually on the weekends. So, that's basically me in a nutshell. I mean, and obviously, as you just heard, I mean, I like to play video games, and yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. So you reached out to us because you are at the start of a very fun filmmaking journey, right? So can you walk me through, you are now you're in the very early stages of your first horror feature film, He Who Follows. So walk me through, as we all have our day jobs and this and that and have the dream of making the feature as well. What led you to this point? Why He Who Follows? Why now? What were you thinking as you start to transition into this pursuit?
So it all started. Over the past, when I first started this after I graduated from college, it was just being on short film after short film, doing different things. I just recently wrapped up another feature a few months ago. Where I was the producer and editor on it. And this was kind of during this process, was about the time when, actually not about, the time when Halloween Ends came out. I saw it with my friend Alex, and we were both big Halloween fans. And we left the theater very, it was okay. No satisfying ending to the trilogy that we were expecting.
It was divisive, to say the least. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but then shortly after that is, I do a lot of my thinking at the gym and at weirdly by whenever I'm at a pool or something, and all of a sudden I just started thinking about doing a slasher feature, because to me horror is either slashers or monsters, and I think that comes from my mom being an English teacher as well, with her teaching Dracula for years. And so I just started thinking more and more about it. And then when the following year, Scream came out, Scream 6, all of a sudden I was just like, huh. I just started thinking of this idea about the story and everything. And I started writing stuff down, and I was like, I feel like this could be something. And then I just took my time writing it. and I kept like, actually what's funny is I kept sending like my friend Alex, who I saw both movies with, I kept sending him like, what do you think of this? Like kind of just
Mhm.
as like an idea, just kind of just somebody to buff stuff off.
It's
He's
an
like,
important part of the process, having someone to bounce those early ideas off of.
yeah, and I think what he and he gave some great notes, and from there I kind of just started writing, and I think also part of it was kind of go back is I'm looking to step out into I for some reason I'm in this I want to start writing and directing my own stuff.
Hmm.
That's just I don't know why, it's just something that's come over me lately, and I kind of want to I look at it as kind of maybe like a little bit of a restart slash I want to I think this is a good jumping off point
Right.
because of how much for one, horror is a fun genre, but also it can be a very complex genre at the same time.
Hmm.
And so that's why I'm like, and so for a solid like 2 months, like I sat there and I wrote it. And then also when I wasn't writing this, I'm working on a rom com as well, just to give my brain, just to
That's a
give my
real
brain.
emotional swing back and forth. I'd love to clue in on that. So, as you're approaching a project, right, and you're like, so you've been working behind the scenes on other stuff, and you want to make your own, right?
Yeah,
Why, of all the horror genres, right? Because horror, to your point, right, it is a lot of monsters and slashers and this and that, but there is a lot of, breadth to the genre and a lot of
yeah.
ways to approach the story. What about the slasher genre specifically called to you and was like, oh, I can add something to this genre? Why the slasher to you?
So for two reasons. One, I think I can connect with when I say I can connect with it, I don't mean I've been involved in a slasher or
I
anything like
was like,
that.
what's your body count, sir? Yeah.
No, it's I think just since I was little, like my sister is the one who introduced me to slashers, and slashers are the one, like I said, I've seen with my friends, and I've seen like that's the kind of the one seen a lot of, and I think, and I thought long and hard, like what could be brought to it that hasn't been brought before, or like, what's the cliches behind it, and like, or what could be different, added to it, and that's kind of what my goal with this was to also like what could be to bring something different, but also something
Mhm.
familiar. Because I mean, in filmmaking, it's not hard to be original, but you have to use something, you have to twist it up
Yeah,
and
and
make it your own.
it can get sticky in these kind of movies, right? Because like Halloween Ends is a great example. We go there and buy the ticket because we want Michael Myers. And if you do
Exactly.
the exact same movie, everyone's like, this is boring. Why did we get it? If you go too far, then people are like, this is not a fucking Michael Myers movie. So it is a really hard area to kind of master that, give us what we want, but still give us something new. So how did you approach that in the writing phase? This idea of, because it's one of the more interesting things I talk to people about other screenwriters, right? I don't think screenwriting is the highest form of writing, but it is one of the only forms of writing where you have to spend so much time thinking about things that aren't inherently part of the story, right? When you're writing, there's so many other things that are yet to happen that change how you write the story. So, how did you approach that balance of wanting to write a slasher, but knowing that you wanted to try to add your own spin and not just kind of rehash the same old territory?
So yeah, so what I started with was the villain. Um,
Mm. You
is
got to have a great villain in a slasher.
Yeah, and well, part of that also was that's where I started, was like, okay, how can I make this different than Michael Myers, than every you know Ghostface, all these other classic ones, but also being like, I want to pay homage to them as well,
Yeah.
and that's where it started. And I thought as I was writing, it was as I write, I watch other movies.
Hmm.
And one day it dawned on me as I was watching Christopher Nolan's Batman movie, and I
Yeah.
used this is gonna I used like I how do I say this is I used the um like I used Batman villains as inspiration in terms of they're the very complex backstory, but where you can feel for them at times.
Yeah. Well, Batman
And
villains also are just these perfect, like, just from one image, you easily understand the whole game of what they're about. And
Yeah,
then over the years, the mythology and the psychology is able to be expanded and deepened. But the moment
exactly.
you see a giant crocodile, you're like, I get that, right?
Yeah,
A giant scarecrow, I get that. A clown, I understand. So it is this perfect, like, I think that's one of the hardest, and I think that's what Art the Clown tapped into. You have
yeah,
to have that just immediate one moment image, right? When you think of Pinhead and Freddy and Jason and Mike, like the greats, right? Chucky, they
yeah.
immediately grab you. But then what separates the really good ones are those extra layers and pools to swim in.
Exactly, and that's why I turned to Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, is because I mean those are fantastic movies when it comes to like it makes you feel for the villains, and so
Mm-hmm.
I use those as like and it took me a few days to so what I did is I wrote the entire backstory of the villain, um, and then thought about how can I connect this to the main story,
Right.
um, in a way, and then I thought of it and I started just writing it down. And then I also then had to think, how am I going to explain this to the audience in a way that is not copying something? Um, and
That's
so
always a challenge.
and so that's when I'm lucky I have a good friend who's a psychologist, and I approached him and I asked, how can I do this different than, you know, Michael Myers and all this? And he's like, just write out what you want first, and then give it to me, and I'll give you some, like, as a psychologist, like an honest opinion,
Huh.
like I have to diagnose, like,
That's a very interesting tool to have in your screenwriting belt.
yeah. So I gave it to him, and he's like, you know what, it's there, but you can condense this down a lot easier, and it's actually, and when I ended up writing it, he's like, you are aware you wrote this in a way that, like, you can just put like what it is, like I guess what he meant was like when I was writing like the dialogue, like I'm describing something that I didn't even know what it was, but I explained it pretty well, and then he ended up explaining to me what, like, I'm trying not that's I'm being vague on purpose,
Right.
so I'm trying not to like spoil things.
Spoilers, man. Spoilers.
So it was kind of an accidental writing moment,
Yeah.
and then he kind of just you know fix it, help me fix it up a little bit with just making it easier for, the general audience to understand.
Yeah, for
Um,
certain.
so yeah, I mean, I would say that, yeah, that's really how it came about.
Awesome. Well, how do you, okay, so one of the other things I think is interesting for independent screenwriters like ourselves is how do you balance your writing schedule with kind of the demands of real life, right? We all have jobs, wife, girlfriend, family, pets, whatever, right? How did you, once you decided you wanted to do this, right? And if you're the writer director, nothing can really start with the project until you have fucking written it, right? How did you approach this and how did you decide to commit yourself to making sure you were making progress on your screenplay?
So, oh yeah, there was that for me. It's like when I have an idea that pops in I don't know if it's a symptom of the ADHD or something else, but at random times I will get, like, I just got an idea, like, I wonder if this could work, and so I jot down really quick in my notes app on my phone, like, just a quick little like scene description, like it's like maybe a sentence or two,
Right.
and then I go back to it, like either that night or like I think on it, like for a few days, and I'm like, okay, and if I can tie it in and make it work in a way that I think feels smooth or felt smooth, that's really what happened, because I got a lot of the scenes in this just randomly, like when I was like, um, just either hanging out with friends or like just like working out, and then just
Yeah.
something that I just thought of, or like, a lot of times if it was for something dialogue related, because dialogue's been the thing I've always struggled with, is,
Mm.
but one of the I forget who said it, is, um list is, if you want to be better at dialogue, just listen to the outside world and how people talk.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing more of, and I'm like, aha, and then stuff started coming to me. Uh, but then in terms of just writing schedule, I mean, I always set aside usually on like a Sunday, because Sundays are like my chill days usually, to just write a little bit here and there,
Mm-hmm.
and then just just attack it, and then I sit on it for like about till Wednesday, or I just don't even think about it, and then I come back to it, and I'm like, you know what, this idea, I can add more details to this and expand on it, and that's actually how I came up with the ending to the film. Was I
Mm.
when I wrote it, I ended up going to Florida like the next week, so I didn't even think about it when I was down there.
Yeah.
And so when I came back and I was like, you know what, let's change some things up a little bit because I thought about it more and more. Um, and so that's really the process for me is if I think of a scene, if it'll work, or a lot of times for me, it's music. If I hear a piece of music,
Yes.
I will write down what the music is, and then I will write a description of the scene, and then I can just start writing from there. Like if I feel like I need to write this right now, I will.
Hmm.
Like I've done it. I've done it in the car before randomly. Just like I just need to write this like
Yeah.
really quickly and like a few lines of dialogue. I can always expand on it, which is
Yeah.
what ended up happening. But it's like
Yeah.
the idea is there. Like I just got to get it out of my head, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's really what it is for me with writing. Is like if I got it in my head, like I need to get this out now, or I will
Yeah.
forget it.
When you said you have the random note app, right? That's just like weird ass sentences that you come back to. You're like, what the fuck was that? And you're like, at some point I thought that was like a very important idea, and I have that same
Exactly.
exact note where it's just weird shit. That hopefully someday will matter. I think you stumbled on something me and my writing partner have been talking about a lot. I think one of the hardest things for independent, creators is this feeling of constant like we're losing time. Every day we're not making any gains. We feel like we're failing and losing. One of the hardest things when you equate that to writing is so much of the best writing happens when you're not at a keyboard, right? You have to go do other things and be somewhere where your brain can be kind of pulled out of the battle, right? Of like trying to
Yep.
get the thing. And things will fall in where like the whole like when you're just like making dinner, you're processing all that stuff somewhere in there, right?
Oh yeah.
And I do think to your point, it is hard, I think, for a lot of us to allow ourselves to have that moment to step away, right? To recharge the battery or let you have the time you need to come up with solutions rather than just sitting at the keyboard like, I gotta get this fucking done now. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that happens all the time. I mean, it's I mean, especially with this, like when in the early on the process, like I was just writing down like little notes, like
Mm-hmm.
where do I want it to take place? Like where do I want this scene to happen? Like,
Yes.
something like what when I think of a character's name, um, I mean, when I thought of the main character's name for this movie, I was like, that's it. I'm not changing it. I'm not changing it
One of
unless I
those
get like,
lightning bolt moments. Yeah.
yeah, like I knew what I wanted it to be as soon as it came to me. Stuff like that. It just randomly happens, and then, like you said, you just gotta get it out, and it's like still processing, but
Mm-hmm.
it's good to get away because then you can come back and think like, what was I thinking exactly then?
Or like an idea that you're so 100% certain is great. You come
Oh
back
yeah,
to like 2 weeks later and you're like, what the fuck was I thinking?
oh yeah, no, that happens quite a bit. That
Yeah,
happens
I get
quite
a
a bit.
lot of those.
Oh yeah, and I still sometimes think that um on a few things, and like mostly like little lines of dialogue. I'm like, what? Why would they say that? That doesn't make sense. Because
Yeah.
I have to like because my main character is a female, so I have to like think that a female wouldn't say that. They would say something probably different, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. Trying to not have every character just sound like a snarky version of yourself is one of the first great hurdles of
Oh
screenwriting.
yeah, yeah, no, no,
So let me ask you this. So you're in the process, right? You've written the script. We got to see the pitch deck for the project. So how are you approaching for this feature, right? How are you tackling kind of the new challenges you're finding with fundraising and pre-production? What is your plan of attack moving forward here?
So right now, the big thing is promoting the movie, and before we do any kind of Indiegogo or anything like that, is we're looking for. I've been lucky to show it to a few distributors already, who are like,
Wow, nice.
if they,
That's a huge leap. Yeah.
I haven't gotten anything like an LO, like a letter of interest or anything, because that would be huge. But at least they're looking at it, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, but right now it's more of a private investor kind of thing, and
Hmm.
also I've been finding a few grants that I'm planning on applying for. That's the big one, and then part of me is also being considered because I've been talking to other producers and other filmmakers, and they're saying you should consider either getting a deep like getting people attached, even if it's like a few people. And so that's the challenge I'm on next. Is other than I'm looking for private investors for when the goal is to get it distributed and and pay them back. And um, but I've also been said I should consider casting at least the main role. So just so that
Yeah.
people can get a face to a name or something like that.
It's an
Um,
interesting conundrum because it's who can you afford at this scale and what do they actually bring to the because I feel like we run into this all the time on festival circuits where everyone's like, I got this insert actress, and it's like, okay, well, that's like the 10th person whose first feature has this actor, right?
yeah.
Like, what are they bringing to it is, you find yourself always running into these. I don't know how you're approaching this, right? But there's a lot of these kind of like classical truisms
Oh yeah.
about how to approach making a movie. And I feel like a lot of them are born out of more traditional kind of Hollywood ideas, like the movie star. How do
Yeah.
you are you approaching finding balance to that when, I assume like us, you're working on, low budgets, very little time. There's not a lot of room to, massage and just get these amenities. How are you kind of approaching what is more important to kind of reach higher and where you can just, force it through?
So with me, with this, I care about. With me, it's the quality of how the movie looks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because of all I've, I'm lucky. I've met a lot of people just through connections and everything. They've told me that horror is the one genre where you can kind of get away with probably not having a big superstar.
Yeah.
If this was a drama, totally different story.
Yeah, well, in
Um,
horror, the idea of a monster or a murder can become your own star.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why that's what's actually good about horror in a way
Mm-hmm.
is that it's also one of the people say that you can make your money back on horror better easier than a lot of other ones.
Fingers crossed, brother.
Right? Fingers crossed on that if that's true.
Yeah.
I mean that could have also come out of somebody's ass for all
What
I
do they
know.
say in 300? We'll put that to the test.
Exactly. Um, but but yeah, that's kind of I kind of lost my train of thought a little bit. Um, I just lost
About
my
how
train.
you don't need stars, right?
Oh yeah,
You can
yeah,
get away with some of those things in horror genre. Yeah.
yeah, and so that's why for I want this to be I like a majority like the way I budgeted this out, for example, is I want this to look like a Hollywood movie. So when I
Mm-hmm.
go to a distributor or in film festivals, like they might be unknown actresses in this
Mm-hmm.
and unknown stars, but holy fuck, that film looks amazing on a big screen.
Yeah.
Like that looks like something that I could show in like AMC theaters and people would be like, this is not an independent film. So
It is one of the great things that we are starting to see more is that with the kind of leveling of technology, right?
oh yeah,
We are going to start being able to make lower budget, if not even just full micro budget films that start to have that kind of the floor of the quality can go so high. I think one of the interesting tricks that all of us find ourselves at this independent level is how do you because the reality always comes down to just time and money, right?
exactly.
And how do you place those in the areas where you can get the furthest stretch, right? That old
Exactly.
saying that every dollar should be seen on screen to
Exactly.
make that movie look as good as it can with the limitations.
Exactly. And that's the challenge is all right, what can I, sacrifice here and there, but I want to put more emphasis on this. And that's where a lot of times in independent films, like, you might have people in double roles.
Mm-hmm.
And or like, they're skilled at two things. and you might have to, or like for example, if I have to help out with editing this thing because I started as an editor, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll have to do that even if I'm not getting paid for it. I'll do that. I'll do whatever. Um, but I've also, especially in independent films lately, I don't know if it's just the ones that I've worked on recently or if it's something else, but I've realized that when you find the like really passionate people who are like really love the project, I mean,
Mhm.
they will go out of their way. They'll go out of their way for it for a lot of things.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, some companies, especially if you have good relationships with like rental houses, they'll give you some good deals too. Of course, that it's all still part of the budget,
Right.
so you got to still spend the money. But I mean, stuff like that, all it all matters in the end, in terms of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I do find the horror community too extra tight knit. It has always felt to me is that there are people. I feel like horror people just really champion each other,
Oh
and
yeah,
especially projects that, to your point, it doesn't feel like there's a huge community of people that are like another drama about a person who didn't make it in L.A. and comes back to their hometown to find their true meaning, right? But
right.
a lot of people, it's like, hey, do you want to come, help me do some fake dead bodies? They're like, oh, that sounds fun. So
Oh
there is
no,
a lot more of that championing. I
no,
feel like.
no, you're right. It's crazy. It's like, okay, I just did this drama. Wait, you're working on something with blood? Fuck yeah, I'm on my way.
Oh, there's
Like
never a better day on set than when the fake blood is flying. Ever,
exactly.
ever.
So that's and the short films that I've done for horror films. I mean, I was a DP on one, and I had to like I was laying on the ground, and I'm like partially petrified because they have like this fake knife that they're gonna swing at me to simulate somebody getting chopped up,
Right.
and I'm like, this is awesome, but at the same time, I'm scared for my freaking life right now. And of
Don't
course,
miss.
the first swing the actress takes, it goes like right past my leg, and like I'm like, oh hell no, and
Yeah.
like I can't move, so I'm like, if it goes into my thigh, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be an interesting story for
Yeah.
from now on. But
At least get the
but
shot. Yeah. Don't waste the shot if I'm going to the
exactly,
ER.
but that was still like. That's still like one of the most fun movies, like fun short films I've worked on, and it was a horror film. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah. So you're exactly right. It's like once the horror calls, it's like, fuck yeah, let's go.
Yeah. It is wonderful. So to that point, so you worked in a lot of other positions, right? You've worked in editing, marketing. You just said DP. You've worked on a lot of other people's stuff. What lessons from all these different? Because I think a lot of us who do this, right? We've come from eclectic backgrounds and chased, down many roads, this and that, and have these kind of eclectic resumes at times. What lessons from these various fields that you've worked in before are you really trying to focus and lean on now that this will be your own project, right? You'll be leading and helming the ship with something you're writing and directing. What lessons have you learned in these other positions that you think will be the most helpful to you now as you pursue this movie?
I think that's kind of what's gonna. I think the fact that I've done all these other positions is what's gonna help me out the most,
Mm-hmm.
and so that if they need help with lighting or grip, like anything like that, I can help out with that as for a quick hot minute. And same with being help out with a DP is I'm a very visual person. So like half the shots in the movie I've already written down or thought of.
Mm-hmm.
Now they might need to have a second opinion on them to help them translate better.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's
There
fine.
sometimes a translation from brain to camera, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's just what uh what excites me is that I've been in all these other positions. I've seen what other independent filmmakers how they've directed and like sometimes I question it, sometimes I don't, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times I've seen a lot of good ones too that I've learned from. So I know where just where everybody's coming from and what they all have to do, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think not only knowing the process of all these jobs, but having empathy
yes.
with people in the battles they'll face in their jobs, especially if they're just coming out to help and they're
Oh
not,
yeah.
they're not in the union, they're not like seasoned veterans. Understanding there's going to be a learning process
Oh
and
yeah.
making it valuable for them, I think, is a huge asset for sure.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I also kind of hope with this movie is I kind of want it to be I'm open to new people coming on and learning a role.
Mm.
That's because that's kind of how I started. That's how I started too.
Oh yeah.
That's how everybody started. Is you have
Yeah,
to learn it
we
somewhere.
call it building our pirate ship, right? We
Exactly.
imagine that everyone who comes on set that day, like they might be the new eccentric pirate that can do something. Like just come and be here, and we'll figure out how you fit in.
Oh,
Uh,
exactly.
it's infinitely important at this stage.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's it's kind of what that's also what's exciting to me is they and all of a sudden they might get a spark of an idea on they want to do something or I like doing this and this is what I
Yes,
want to do and then all of a
infectious
sudden
creativity.
yeah and then all of a sudden they're a part of a union and working on some bigger film like holy shit what the fuck happened.
Hey, where's my job? Yeah.
Exactly.
I want 10%. No, yeah, I think that is you're at this really exciting kind of pinnacle, right? Where it's fucking scary and it's hard to put yourself out there and be the one who is writing and directing and it's your thing now, right? There is cover and just being, I'm the gaffer. When this is done, I go home and I do my best, but like it's not going to follow you the way something like this does and it becomes that all-consuming thing. So finding that ability to inspire someone else who's moving a light, that really does bring a lot back to you, I find, when you find yourself in those kind of like hard moments, right? Heath and I have had many of them where it's, that 3 a.m, like, fucking, why are we doing this again? What's happening? And you're just looking for anything to pull you out of the rut, right? Because these are long, long journeys to make even small films, right?
Oh yeah.
And there is something beautiful about seeing someone, like I'm thinking right now, one of our fellow misfits, right? His niece wanted to try makeup. So she came out and now she's like one of our biggest supporters. She's at every fucking shoot. And she's doing great. And she's starting to do a ton of projects without us. And that is one of those wonderful things when you see people actually take to it, like it, and start running fast after their own dreams.
Oh
I
yeah.
find that myself very inspiring. And it helps get you through those moments, I think.
Oh yeah. No, and that's kind of that's one of the goals that I have with this movie is to get people started in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's weird to say that with a horror movie, but you never know.
Not over here. It's not.
Hey, but and I especially because I talked to the somebody who's helping me produce this, and one of my goals also with this is I want to have as much diversity and as many women on set as well, just because they don't get a lot of chances,
Mm,
and especially I mean in the Columbus, Ohio area. If
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know
just even the Midwest in general, there's not a ton of just creative outlets and opportunities to do this kind of stuff, period.
exactly, and so that's one of the goals with this movie that I hope to I shouldn't say hope because I think I will accomplish that.
You're in
Even it,
charge now, dude. You just got to do
yeah,
it.
yeah. Even if it takes even takes a little bit more time, that's kind of what the goal is.
Yeah.
The goal is I'd rather take the time and get it right rather
Mm.
than rush and make something that I will vomit on later.
Well, we've all been there too, sadly.
Oh yeah.
But that's hopefully shorts and not a full feature. So let me ask you this, right? What do you envision? Have you taken the time yet to imagine a world beyond this first feature, right? Because I think a lot of people, we get really focused in on the project we're doing now. And I think one of those separating mindsets, right, is do you have the idea for, all right, you accomplished this gargantuan feat of making a movie. Have you had time yet to kind of process and think about your plan after this first movie is completed?
The only thing I know after this first movie, once it's completed, is that I've started writing the sequel to it.
I
Because,
wondered if you were doing a slasher, if this was a sequel setup.
but it's I am only doing it in two. I only want it